Good afternoon and welcome into the SPL Week 10. Mifflin, it is time for some of these teams to put up or shut up. We have had a great first phase, but if you don't find a way to come in and win this week, then for some of these teams, Mifflin, it is absolutely over right here and right now. So there's obviously a bunch of really good games lined up for this week. Now, the way the schedule ended up working out, we didn't have anybody doing any kind of crazy double headers or anything this week, so it was just the Saturday and Sunday games that we're going to be bringing here for you all. It started with eUnited and the Knights could be the first set that we're looking at. Another big one is Obey and Renegades later on today too. Sanguine and Radiance, a huge one to kind of end this first phase on. And these standings give you a really great idea of exactly what's at stake. Remember, we only are taking the top 6 teams with us into that playoff stage. It's going to be happening once this first phase wraps up. So eUnited and Renegades right now, they are jockeying for that all-important 6th position.
And eUnited have to put up a shut up immediately. They're the first set of today. If they do win out here, I think that does confirm their spot in the playoffs. But if they lose, Renegades are going to have to beat out Obey in order to take away eUnited's spot. This is a high-pressure game, and when the pressure's on, eUnited's looking like a very inconsistent roster. It's either they look just normally good, or we get God King Hurrywin coming out and bring them all the way up to great.
It really does feel like, to me, eUnited are one of those teams where Plan A really needs to work for them, Mifflin. You know what I mean? They do come into the set, usually, or even the individual games with really good strats, but if those go awry, I don't know if we've seen the adaptation from this team on the fly yet.
They really do. It seems like they come in it every week with a plan that they establish, and it's not always the same plan, which makes it hard to lock these guys down. Sometimes it's incredibly mobility focused. Sometimes we see them really wait it out to a late game and play around team fights. We've seen them bring just about every traditional strategy to a SMITE game, but they never adapt on the fly, as you pointed out. If they lose out in the early and they draft for the early, they continue fighting it stubbornly. If they draft for the late, sometimes they just don't get there. I think that if they were able to just maybe play on the fly a little bit more, if they were able to adapt their strategies mid-set, adjust to what the enemy teams are bringing, this squad could be maybe even 3rd, 4th seed. But right now, this inconsistency, I think, is born out of that hard-stuck mentality that they bring into every single game.
I do think you're right to point out this eUnited roster is high-end, though, because, I mean, every time I go through this roster, I kind of can't believe how stacked they are, right? You can make an argument for variety. I think over in the solo lane, as a top-tier solo laner, Scream, depending on the time, as a top-tier jungler as well, and I think Hurwitz has really solidified his name with his performance this phase, too. And still, they struggle with some of that inconsistency. Remember, they also added genetics into the support role back kind of in the middle of this first phase, so maybe some of it is still adjusting and getting used to having that strong personality in the support role there for the Mifflin. But Genetics, we don't really have to worry about how the team is feeling about him or maybe what his mentality is. We already talked to him, so we can go ahead and listen a little bit to some of his thoughts about this upcoming set.
All right, guys, I'm here with Genetic support for eUnited, and we're talking to him about his matchup up against the Knights. Now, last week for you guys, Genetics, a 1-0 week, quick and easy, 2-0 over SSG. So an upset to be sure, but prior to that, a 3-game loss streak for you guys, specifically that it was a win over SSG and a win nonetheless. How important was the win last week for confidence and maybe getting some momentum prior to an important game here today?
Yeah. I mean, we've always believed that we're definitely one of the better teams in the league, and we think we're just a bit inconsistent in terms of how we play on game day. But I think when you lose against teams that are lower down in the league, even though everyone's good, I'm not BMing anyone,
right?
But like, beating a better team just show that you have some sort of skill at a high level to perform against every single team, not just teams that are lower than you or close to you.
Right. And that's been interesting to watch, I suppose. I mean, your guys' highs are so far up there, and once you nail those down, you're one of the more difficult teams to beat here in this league. Now, Heimdall unbanned, Baba Yaga introduced, Morgan available now. You're a team that's obviously leaned into some of these interesting picks. How has that unbanned God pool, and with Baba Yaga being available now, changed some of that game plan up?
Yeah, man, it's been so good. It's been so good to finally have these gods open up, you know. Like, Hurry is definitely one of the best Morrigans and one of the best Baba Yagas as well. Snoopy's amazing on Heim, so having those top picks open for us just means that not only do they get their better gods, but it means that I might get Horus, I might get, other stuff.
Right.
And Scream might get Bastet too, which is always amazing.
Right, it's always fun to watch that. Now, an important matchup today against the Knights. Playoffs just a few weeks away. One win in hand over the Renegades. Really, to boil it down, if you guys win, makes your path to the playoffs a little bit clearer. How's the team feeling? I mean, this is really the first kind of do-or-die-esque game for you guys. How's the team feeling going into it?
Yeah, we've been preparing for the last 3 weeks now, making sure we're consistent because we've consistently been inconsistent so far,
Right.
and we're trying to be consistent. So we've been working on the same things. I think our team fights have improved, and I think we're going to be quite an upsetting team at playoffs when we make it, because we've got a lot of dumb ideas that might work, but it's just getting there now and beating PK, which are a really good team.
Yeah, and looking at PK, 2-0 for the Knights earlier here in this year. Kind of final thoughts, Genetics. What's it going to take to beat the Knights here?
Just consistent gameplay. They're a very consistent team. They don't make a lot of mistakes. I think that's their best attribute as a team is if they've got a game plan, they're going to stick to it as a team. And I think we have to be ready for it wherever they want to play around or wherever we want to play around on the map. And just be there and be ready to go because they definitely will be.
Well, excited for it. Sounds like you got some confidence going into it, and for good reason. Genetics, thanks for talking, and best of luck.
Thanks.
Sounds like Genetics and the rest of the eUnited boys do have a good read on what they can expect from the Knights here in this set. But I wonder if having that read is really going to be enough there for them. Mifflin, they're going to be playing up against the Knights. You heard them talking about how you never really know if they're going to be sticking to their game plan, what phase of the game you have to play them at. I think that they have identified some of what makes the Knights so hard to beat.
I really do think, and I equate the Knights to the wild card in the league, because this is another team that is widely inconsistent. These guys are the defending world champions. Their current placement in the league might not really indicate that, but they have so many fantastic tools that if they get off to a good start, can absolutely dominate a game. I mean, it's hard not to bring up Paul. This guy can absorb 6 bans, pick out something from his pocket that no one's ever seen before, and then run a lobby with it. And then sometimes he just gets shut down in the early, and when Paul's not doing well, it seems like generally the Knights aren't doing well.
It does feel like they rely on Paul, but to sort of speak to your comment about their inconsistency, think about if they win this set and then Radiance lose their set tomorrow, then suddenly the Knights end the season in the top half of the league, right? They're in that 4th place spot. So that just goes to show sort of, I think, that line that they're walking between how we characterize this whole season for the Knights. I think there is kind of a lot that's on the line for them, even though it won't dramatically shift for them the way that, the things go for them in the actual playoffs themselves. I do think kind of a lot about just how you view their season looking back on it could depend on how this individual set goes.
I think so, but even then, best case scenario, 4th seed, this is a squad, when you're defending world champion, I expect these guys to be closer to the top of the pack, and I think that they're completely capable of it. I mean, just looking at the guys on this roster, Neilma, Zapman, Cuvo, Belair, all of these guys have been best in division or best inside role at one point or another, and as a squad, they work very well together. I know that towards the earlier in the season, we were saying that Cuvo has to adapt, and I think he's done a fantastic job adapting to his new team. But so far, the inconsistencies that have been there since week 1, I feel like haven't really gone away.
No, I don't think that they have either. There's still some stuff for the Knights to clean up, but they have looked much better as of late. But if I could think of a guy who also wouldn't be happy with 4th place Miffle, I think it would be Cuvo Fred, man. He and the rest of those guys are hungry for that number 1 spot. But you don't have to take it from me. Let's listen into what Cuvo Fred had to say in his interview.
All right, guys, I'm here with Cuvo Fred, the jungler for the Knights, and we're talking to him about his matchup against eUnited. Now, last week, it was a split week for you guys, 1-1, playoff spot secured, though. How's the team feeling right now, maybe compared to preseason expectations going into the final week of Phase 1?
So I think we all knew it's going to be, the first split here is going to be a journey, and we kind of just had to mesh together. I think we're pretty happy we made land. We're tied with Radiance for 4th and 5th right now. So coming into this week, we're definitely looking for a win and looking at 4th spot. I believe we are facing the 5th team at land, so no matter what, we're going to another land in the tournament, so we're gonna meet Radiance no matter what. So we're just looking to go out on a win here.
So I guess that's kind of the follow-up question. Depending on how all of that shakes out, is moving up 1 spot end all be all for you guys, or is it truly just end the phase on the right note?
It's truly just to end on the right note. Like personally, I don't really care. I mean, I do care about winning, of course, but at this point, we're just looking at the tournament coming up, and we just want to be in a good spot for
Right.
that. United winning that or being 4th or 5th, it doesn't matter too much. But of course, we're gonna try hardest.
Right. Well, eUnited now your matchup here today to try to determine where some of that seeding falls down. I think one of the harder teams to lock down here in this league. I can't tell which team we're going to get on any given week. What's your confidence like going into this matchup? You beat them 2-0 last time. Do you think something similar could happen here today?
Yeah, I definitely think so. United is like cold and hot. So one week they look
Right.
like one of the top team, and the next week they're kind of like you don't really know what they're doing. But I think they're starting to figure out what they want to do, and they're looking really good. So we're gonna come in prepared for sure.
And recently we actually, and this is maybe game preparation specific for you guys, Heimdall, Morgan available again, Baba Yaga added to the pool. United, a team that leaned into a few of those picks pretty early on. Is that something you guys try to prepare for against United specifically, or is the mindset just play your game plan and maybe adapt to what they bring in the game itself?
We are definitely preparing for the new gods being available, such as Time and Morrigan and whatever. So for sure, we wanna make a game plan for those, and we wanna make the draft accordingly. And we already seen Hurrivan on the Baba Yaga.
Right.
Pretty good. So we're definitely looking out for those and preparing.
Well, as I mentioned, last time you beat him 2-0. What's it going to take for you guys to get another 2-0 here today?
I think if we play our game today, we are definitely going to see another 2-0 for us. So we are going to try our hardest to do that.
All right, Cubo Fred, thank you very much. Best of luck. We'll talk to you soon.
Sure. Take care.
Well, you heard them talking about Whirlwind on the Baba Yaga, and he did have some impressive performances on that before. Mifflin, was that enough to turn you into a Baba Yaga believer, the top damage performances he was able to turn in?
I'm so hard stuck in my own values, man. Baba Yaga's early game is so weak. It's a similar issue that you see with Scylla, and I think that her late game is strong, but it's not the strongest late game that a mage has. So why would you ever go towards Baba Yaga? It's really the safety that god brings, the jump, the damage mitigation, and the ultimate, the CC immunity, and the ability to stack items. Hurrywind's the only person so far to show me real usage of her passive, and I think with that build, she is valuable to pick up, but even then, it's such a hard task to get her to late game.
Well, I guess we'll get to find out the answer insofar as if Hurwin will be piloting it right about now. Let's get into those picks and bans for this all-important game number 1. And, I think Hurwin talked about this extra sort of added advantage to playing Baba Yaga, which is that even if she's maybe not that much better than a lot of other people in the late game, she is still fairly new. And I think there's just something to picking something that they have less hours in the gym against, so to speak.
Yeah, uncomfortableness is such a valuable asset that you can put anyone into. That's why we see a lot of aggressive early game teams do well in the league, is because you're trying to put the enemy team into uncomfortable circumstances. Baba Yaga, no one really plays against her, no one really plays her in ranked that much, means that no one's got the experience. You can do some stuff that maybe they're not expecting. That said, she can also get some pretty nasty RNG. Sometimes you just need a random cripple for 0.5 seconds, and it can completely shift a fight. Baba Yaga can do that.
There is certainly some variance, I think, to what you can expect from the Baba Yaga, so hopefully we'll get a chance to actually pilot here, and maybe that come to fruition. PK will be in that first pick spot, so far banning away the Hou-Yi, King Arthur, and the Nike, and I think up against eUnited, this makes a ton of sense, up against just about anybody. These are some gods you don't want to deal with. eUnited banning away the Camazot's Hell and the Emoja. There's still a lot of good stuff out there, Myth. You think these are the first 6 that you kind of got to get rid of anyway?
It's always risky leaving up these Paul picks. It's always risky leaving up Hurrywin picks, and there's so much still very strong available. Like, Hou-Yi's almost certainly a target ban, but it leaves Heimdall open, it leaves Uhl open. There's a lot of meta picks. I think that these are all targeted, and both squads did a lot of homework based on what we're seeing here. I'm excited to see whether or not Morgan gets picked up by eUnited. We heard Genetics say that Hurrywin has one of the best Morgans in the world. We haven't seen it quite yet in the league, but it's available now. No bans towards it. We might just see it.
We might, and the Khepri is another option here too. I do think the genetics has looked the best on these kind of picks, right? He looked really good on the horse. He could be kind of active early, but he's also looked good on this Khepri where he can be a sort of a facilitator with that ultimate to enable the rest of his team to do even better. I like this first pick here from eUnited purely because of how much I like genetics when he has this in his hands. They'll pair that with the Chernobog. These are strong picks, but I do feel like they're leaving a lot of the really, really good stuff kind of still out there.
I gotta agree, but the lane pressure that Khepri and Chernobog are gonna bring together is insane. Heimdall paired with just about anyone barring a literal mage isn't gonna be able to match that wave clear, so they could be able to farm up safely. They might be able to leverage it for an early game poke war, maybe get an early kill in this Heimdall before he gets his survivability online. I like the draft so far, and having Khepri means that we can start to see some more dive-based assassins. We can see a little bit less facilitation out of your soul lane or your jungler. You don't really need too much CC out of them. This might open up the door for Scream's Bastet.
It might, but this is scaring me a bit now for PK. They've got a lot of their comfort picks. I love Scary D, but he gets to play the Achilles. It lets him be aggressive. The Merlin in the middle lane as well for Paul. We still know how strong this pick is, and Zaps looked very comfortable on Heimdall. You cannot gank him enough to where he hasn't been ganked that hard in the past before, so he's certainly ready for just about anything. But how do you like this Giannis locked in for eUnited?
I like Giannis for Hurrywind. I don't care what his team name is at any given point. It doesn't have to be eUnited. If Hurrywind's piloting it, I trust it. But again, we're giving up a lot of pressure. Giannis won't be able to pressure out Merlin in the early. Your jungler is going to have to be helping you out a lot there if you want Hurrywind to get up to this nice farm state. And you can't truly rely on your soul lane to do well when Scary D is piloting this Achilles. If we were to look just at tier lists right now, PK is leagues ahead.
They are, and I think that's why it's good that you're mentioning the value that eUnited's players add to these particular picks. I'm thinking the Khepri and the Giannis in particular get a big boost from being piloted by genetics and by Hurrywind as well. So hopefully they could bring that sort of additional value out of them, because remember, at this SPL level, even though Giannis can struggle sometimes in some of the casual games, he can be a really big player in these SPL level matches if you could be coordinated around.
He can be. This Hercules pickup is a question mark for me. We can assume that it's either going to go into jungle or solo. I mean, support's not really an option if Khepri's already locked in. And jungle would be a little bit better. You pick Hercules for his early game dominance. He wants to get involved early. He wants to get involved everywhere. Minute 1, he's looking for driving strikes, setting up his team for kills. If he does get slated over into that solo role, he's got an okay matchup into Achilles. The heal's going to make it very hard for the execute to come through, but you're missing all of that huge power area for Hercules. He's going to only really get to rotate out around mid to late game.
What about these last two additions here for the night? Pele picked up. There were not a lot of jungle bans. Thor and Unbots were certainly still available. And the Amir pick, who recently did have the chains there to the wall. Do you see a lot of good punishes for that wall, perhaps, in the draft United have here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Khepri gets walled, he's stuck. Chernobog, he's going to go into the wall and be stuck. Hercules not getting through it, neither is Guan Yu. Giannis, if he's around an actual structure, he could make it through there. But there's not a ton of counterplay for United for these walls. That said, Ymir is a double-edged sword. If he gets blown up in the early game, you can only expect him to continue to do so. But with Giannis in mid, he's not getting Kraken, he's not getting raw ulted, he's not eating Raijin damage like he normally would be. This Giannis doesn't have that consistent burst potential. Maybe this Ymir is just going to run around for free in the early.
What about between the Guan and Hercules? Do you think it's more likely that's Guan jungle here for United?
See, both of these gods are better in the jungle. That's what makes that question so hard. I think that Guan Yu jungle might be better off. Well, I mean, they are. Jungle's the best role. But I think that Hercules has a better matchup into Achilles than Guan Yu does, so it's likely going to be Guan jungle.
Likely going to be the Guan. I think that the Guan is in a better position to potentially punish this Amir as well. We'll get our chance to see, though, how it ends up working. Game number 1 is about to kick off.
Well, it's time 1 week prior to the Phase 1 playoffs to kind of sort out the bottom few teams here in the bracket. It is Dolson and Gormizer on the call, Doug on the camera, and I cannot wait to sort some of these teams out at the bottom, Gore. Pittsburgh Knights, they're already in. Maybe some seeding changes here, but eUnited 1 game in hand over the Renegades. This is a big game for them to secure their spot.
Yeah, they want to win this just so that tomorrow they're not biting their nails, right? That's realistically the thing they have going for them. It also helps because, I mean, this is a big one to win. Knights have been on the rise, so getting them as a notch on your belt to be able to say that you've beat a team that is as talented as so far as we've seen the Knights be this year would be a big step forward for where we've seen eUnited.
Now, everyone from eUnited played a big role in their 2-0 last week over SSG, but Hurrywind has been the talk of the town for good reason. Pulled out the Giannis immediately into Baba Yaga for Game 2. Hurrywind with 4 other mid laners from this league, 5 of the top 5 damage dealers in the league, all in the mid lane, Paul being the exception a touch further down. But Hurrywind in that second spot, I think a lot of what eUnited are going to be looking to do here in game number 1 have to continue to hinge around this Giannis. You saw what he was able to do last week. You get him ahead, you open up these doors for him, maybe portals is a better way of wording it, and he can kind of run away with these games.
And that's the thing that Hurrywood's bringing. His Yana it's essential to eUnited's play, right? I mean, it brings something different that a lot of teams don't have right now. And, you know, what Mifflin had said, where it's maybe not the same kind of confirmable burst damage you get out of maybe a Kraken or a Rald and things like that, but Hurrywid is playing it so carefully. He's almost always free-firing in the backline. No one can lock him down. If they try to jump on him, well, he has the portals to get away. And worst-case scenario for him most of the time seems to be like, oh, shoot, I have to use my ult to disengage from this one, and so he just walks away from it no matter what. And because of that, they've been able to pull some of the most insane plays we've seen. Comes to my mind them sieging down a left-hand Phoenix and using the ult from Hurrywid to get to the right-hand lane and take the right Phoenix. Like, things like that, they're playing around this god so well and making it so essential that it's become integral to eUnited.
In kind of the name of the game around eUnited, and we heard it even in post-game or pre-game interviews rather from Genetics and Cubo Fred as well. It's inconsistency from this eUnited team that has been kind of, I don't want to call it a downfall, but that has kept them maybe a little bit further down the standings from where they would like to be at this point. Because when they are playing at the top of their game, well, they're one of the hardest teams in the league to beat. On the flip side of the coin, though, the Knights, you could maybe have a similar conversation about them. But look back at that mid lane as well. Paul, obviously, kind of a Swiss Army knife of mid laners as well. Could be in the same conversation as Hurrywid. What do you need to see out of this Merlin maybe to kind of counteract what the Giannis is going to be bringing to the table?
Honestly, a lot of what Paul's job is going to be, I mean, there's 3 tanky guys on the side of eUnited. Merlin's one of the best guys at burning those kind of gods down.
True.
Get rid of the Guan, get rid of the Hercules. Like, when they are in the area, it is your job to try and burn them as fast as possible. Keep them isolated, locked down. That'll allow Cuvo to find the pick into the backline. It'll set Scary D up, which is a perfect pick for this Achilles in late game, to burn through that Scarab's Blessing from Genetics, make sure that res can't come off with those executes. So I think Paul is, unfortunately, he's not going to be the setup man here, right? He is going to be at the kind of will, I think, of Neil and of Scary and realistically eUnited. But if he gets that burn damage out, then it is going to be essential for his team to win.
That's a great point, Gore. The Achilles execute into the Scarab's Blessing, an interaction we're going to have to keep our eyes on throughout this game because it mitigates, well, literally the entire ultimate. It is very specific. The certain moment might open the doors and allow Scary D to make that play. Yeah. We'll have to see if he's able to kind of capitalize on it. And the supports in this game, Gore, I'd argue, maybe in a similar category where with Ymir, when first started getting some play a few weeks ago, the conversation was, well, Ymir can just kind of get killed over and over and over and over again. And Kepri, maybe along a similar vein. But I'd argue they're 2 heavy utility-based supports in that if you can get a freeze and a wall off, even if you're 0-3, well, you've set up potential fights there for your team.
Ymir walls, in my mind, are one of the most powerful abilities in SMITE, period. And it just comes from things like that. You reorganize the jungle. You control the flow of a fight if you place them properly. And now with the ability to break them down in the event you misplace it, you have so much utility to work around. His freezes are so good. Like, the setup he brings to the table and what I expect to see out of Neil throughout the rest of this game, it's just so much. I mean, there's a solid reason Ymir was my second diamond god in SMITE, and it's because he flows so well, he plays so well, and once you get those walls like unlock, once you know the range of it, where they're going to be going up, man, can you change a team fight.
Yeah, and Neo absolutely one of the best setup supports here in this league, so I expect big things out of him. Maybe similar sentiment, Gore, around something like a Khepri, something I brought up just sort of briefly, obviously with the root and the slow pull backwards, but the large kind of span of the utility that you look for, especially maybe in a game like this, in a high-pressure game up against the Knights, is giving yourself an out with that Scarab's Blessing.
I think the biggest thing, though, is whether or not Genetics is going to have to use it to defend himself, or if he's going to be able to use it to save the life of a teammate. Because that's where we've seen it kind of falling apart lately, is where that pressure gets put, even much like right now.
Well, Cuvo is in there. Genetics frozen down, but a nice portal from Hurrywind will get the support out. Cuvo has to blink over the wall back to his side of the map, but Scream is here as well. Neilma stunned down, is going to try to turn around some damage. Paul on the rotation in from the mid lane. Low health bars on either side, but the Knights capitalize first, and they capitalize twice. Paul with a nice rotation and a double kill 6.5 minutes in.
I like the way that eUnited start to engage on that one, but I mean, the Knights just recognize where they need to go. I mean, Cuvo has a beautiful blink over the wall. It's so beautiful to the point that I was looking for his team to have a Yanis that portaled him out of there. I was like, there's no way he did that on his own and was able to get it so seamlessly. But I mean, getting out of there, we get Paul off to a brilliant early start. And I mean, you need this Merlin to start hitting hard fast. The best way to do that is to put 2 kills under his belt and now get him rolling.
And that's exactly what we wanted to see from Paul as well. Over on the purple buff side, that's purple buff 2 in a row now have been stolen by the Knights, and Zapman displaying a little bit of the added mobility thanks to the Bifrost that Heimdall has. He is somewhat low, so Genetics feeling a touch more confident to maybe move over to this purple buff side, but nobody else from eUnited is here in range. Cubo Fred rotating through. Look at the wall from Nilma. There's some setup for you. Scarab's Blessing will put him right back in place, and Cubo Fred will get the kill. I'm not sure what Genetics is thinking there. Nobody from eUnited is rotating in to help him out, and the purple buff is still going to go over to the Knights.
It felt like that salty, you've been taking ours, I'm going to come over and try to take yours to see what we can do, try to balance things out, and it just didn't quite work out. And it's actually showcasing a brilliant thing for us, because Scary G, his ultimate, we were talking about how that's going to be integral in dealing with Scarab's Blessing, but it can be body blocked sometimes. Maybe he's going to be using it on someone else to get the execute, and while he has 3 of them, it might not always line up perfectly with that Scarab's Blessing, but hey, you force Genetics to use it on himself, and you don't care about that anymore if you're Scary D. You're making him either reset himself, which maybe late game is troublesome because you have to burn through half his health bar again, but for the most part, he's slowly falling behind. That kill is going to mean a lot, again, going this time onto Cuvo, so getting your jungler slightly ahead. If you force Genetics to play safe the entire time, then you're suddenly relying on this Hercules, this Guan Yu, to be your setup. But Guan theoretically is going to go more, jungler, more assassin-y, so he's going to be a little squishier than your typical warrior. It might be just as easy to burn him down when you get into the late game as it is now, so I don't know if you can reliably fall back onto them.
Right, and after 3 kills here for the Knights, there's not a massive gap anywhere. At least in the XP column just yet. A 1-level lead for Neo, affecting 100% of the kills, and could get worse here. Look at the aggression and the confidence that the Knights have up to this point, and for good reason. They're just going to walk themselves in. Hurrywind cannot portal away, and Cubo Fred just kind of walks at him and gets the kill. That's a double freeze from Neo. It's going to be a disengage this time around, or maybe he's going to trap him in for Zapman to rotate over. The ultimate won't connect from the Heimdall. It's a clean kill and get out. This is the play you need to see, and you want to see if you're a Knights fan. These clean picks, clean team fights, and you're not giving up anything in exchange.
That's one of those small little skirmishes where the leveling up for Ymir, as you level his wall, it lasts longer. And if you have like a 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th point in there, you've locked that down, and that fight is not only going on, but Zapman hits that ult, you've gotten a kill.
Oh, Paul realizes Snoopy is going to have to ult in behind him. And that's a free kill on a silver platter. Maybe Paul, though, goes down in the meantime. Scream with the cavalry charge, and then the portal from Hurrywind to set it up, and Scream will end up dropping down the Knights mid laner. Was on a killing spree up to that point now. Neil, a touch overextended as well, and suddenly it's a double kill for the eUnited jungler. Cuba Fred, full-on retreat. eUnited pull back a couple. Snoopy does end up going down, though, for the 2nd time in the game.
That's one of the things that Guan is going to be able to bring to this fight, though, right? And it's something that's easy to overlook, because when he's in solo lane, you don't get to see him for a while, so it doesn't maybe play as big a role. But here in the jungle for Scream specifically, Neil, I'm looking even towards Cuvo, as well as Scary D, Paul, anybody. He's got Prot Shred. He's going to be able to set you up for easier kills, kind of a silver platter for his team. So, yeah, unfortunately, Snoopy goes down there. But if you start looking at these engagements either when Snoopy is still available or while Hurwind is around, they're going to be able to hit that much harder because of this Guan. Start to factor in some sustain late game, and all of a sudden, I think Scream, again, can kind of flourish on this pick. And with those 2 kills, getting a double kill, that gets him right back on the track he needs to be on to make this pick matter.
And I think an important counteraction to that is going to be Paul now with this Divine Ruin first item overall. I mean, you talk about late game, not only damage spread potential, but of course anti-heal potential as well for, you know, Hercules, Guan Yu, Snoopy's got the Devo's Gauntlet as well for some extra healing. Paul, not only damage-wise, but anti-heal-wise, is going to have a little bit extra on his plate now. What his second completed item overall might be is sort of up for debate. Pen has been the overall kind of favorite in this category. Hurrywind obviously going for the Chronos Pendant. Looks like maybe a BOV Gore for Paul, second overall here.
And that's going to help him out. I mean, look at who's been ganking him the most. He's had to deal with Snoopy. He's had to deal with Scream. And the best way to stop them from hurting you as much is get some physical protections online. You're going to still get some cooldowns. So, you know that Divine Ruin you were just talking about? Cool. He's going to be able to proc it even more so now. His Blink going to be up a little more so to make sure he can get out of there. But it does take away some of that power curve that you want. So maybe not shredding as much as you need him to.
Zapman has to disengage as Snoopy had found the route there through space and time. Won't connect, so Hurrywind in on the rotation as well. Gold Fury, some deep ward coverage actually from eUnited. eUnited are really the ones with further in ward coverage over on the Pittsburgh Knights side of the map. So Scream and some other rotations have kind of opened up the doors, and that'll prevent the Knights from maybe trying to sneak something away with this 1K gold lead they've built.
And it's well, the setup, right? That's exactly what they're looking for, is trying to figure out where they can fight this back. Because it's still 5-2, but that gold lead, like you said, while it's there for Knights, is not insurmountable. It's something you can still take down, still control, and still try to, well, isolate, lock down, and turn it back into your favor. Gold Fury is the easiest one to be able to do that, and if you win maybe a fight because the Knights go too deep over here and left, that's an easy swerve right into that neutral objective.
Well, this would be the first time we see the solo laners get involved, so that does maybe lend the mind to a Gold Fury attempt, and the Knights will agree, so they started up here. Cuvo Fred has found Hurrywind with low mana, but the portal will get him out alive. 2 members of eUnited off to the side, 3 moving in towards the Gold Fury. Hercules will drop down the boulder, but it's a good disengage on the Fury from the Knights. Scary D playing zone. It's actually going to be Neil burning the ultimate to secure it, and they do indeed. How about the fight afterward, though? Scary D is going to move himself back in, disengage from both teams, and the Knights will take the Fury down.
And that's the one thing I think the Knights are going to have over United. Boulder, it's great at trying to secure it. The minute Variety threw that out, well, that's the go button, right? I mean, what else are they going to do? As long as you put up maybe a wall from Neil or you just get a good zone going, they have to dive deep into the team to try and control that. And one of the things Ymir ult does best is slow you down, lock you away, but blow up objectives on the spot. So he's in the perfect position. You step forward. If he has to pop it a little early, it's no big deal because he's probably going to kill anybody on eUnited who gets too close. That Shards of Ice is not something to scoff at, specifically because of the slow. But I mean, look at the damage that goes up on it. 150% scaling, but once he gets it up towards that max in 1100 base, like, it hurts. And not only that, but you also have to imagine the fact that it now goes off if he dies in the ult, so you have to be very careful as to whether or not you put pressure onto him while he's channeling it as well.
And I think that kind of adds to that conversation of Ymir, even if slightly behind, which Neil is not even in that area right now. He's 0-1-4, affecting 4 out of the 5 kills. Yeah, you can kill Ymir, but if he's in his ultimate, you're going to take some damage for it. Hurrywind was kind of that, you know, saving grace, of course, last week on the Giannis. Player damage-wise, somewhat far down on the charts here at this point, and only had a few chances to really poke down some damage. Has an opportunity to add some here, and will do so over on the Neilma, who's a touch caught out, and a good rotation from eUnited. And a 3rd kill now for Scream. So while Hurrywind was the start of that conversation, Gore, maybe it's the 3-kill Guan Yu that keeps eUnited with a foothold in this one.
I mean, you want to talk about CC chains. Holy crap. That was just a long time to not be there. Now, I think Knight's trying to showcase what they can do. But that's the difference, right? Hurwin can escape where Neil, in specific positions like that, I would even say Zap, if he doesn't have his ult up or his beads up, they're going to get caught out several times. So there's a lot of lockdown that eUnited has for these fights.
Oh, United want to chase this one out. Snoopy burns the ultimate. Cubo Fred has the speed buff, but caught out by Variety on the knockback. Scary D is going to get stunned down as well. Boulder will connect for some good damage. That's all the fight eUnited have in them here at this point. Zapman still solo pushing down this long lane. That's going to be a free tier 1 tower. First one in the game to fall down. The Knights will pull a little bit extra gold into their back pocket.
And honestly, there's not much Snoopy can do about it without assistance. I mean, a 2-level lead for Zap, plus he has his ult available to him right now. Going into a 1v1, it's not necessarily the safest idea for him. Especially with, again, like Zap's build, he's gone for that Aussie, which I think is going to help him a little bit more with that boxing potential, give him some of that lifesteal that he's not going to have since he went to the Transcendence start. And I just like the way that the Knights are building right now. It seems very conscious of what they're up against, what kind of fights they're going to be taking. I mean, even Neil has gone kind of haywire compared to what you typically see out of a support, because you don't need to pick up a very tanky build for Ymir. He's going to be tanky naturally. You can be aggressive and be that not only frontline initiator, but you can kind of kill him yourself given the right circumstance.
It's in that same conversation, right, as like the Jormungandrs of the world, the Cerberuses, where like, yeah, you can build kind of this hybrid-y, magical bruiser type build, and Ymir absolutely in there. So it looks like Voidstone, as you point out, to maybe round things out here for Neil's second item after his boots. This is a soul gem for Hurrywin picked up here after the Chronos pendant to start off this Giannis build. And in a match, Gore, we've already talked about healing being a priority for eUnited and anti-heal being a priority for the Knights. Do you like this route that Hurrywin has gone?
I think it's going to work out well for them. Again, a lot of damage is going to be coming out from Hurwin. He's going to be hitting a lot of people with those abilities as well. And you got to look at sustain, forcing them to go for a divine, to go for the brawlers, potentially forcing some of these other guys into those build paths as well, a contagion or a pestilence if you're looking for defense. It's going to make it maybe more difficult for you to heal, but you're taking away some of the strength they would have from maybe other items that fill that slot. Maybe forcing a relic to be a cursed Ankh to try and shut down Scream's healing. Right? You just open that avenue and that conversation for it, and hey, if Scream maybe is in the front line, he can help out Genetics, he can help out Variety. Hurwin needs some healing too. He needs some love in the back line, so I like the fact that he's got a soul gem that can keep him going.
Well, Neoma has completed the Void Stone, and that's given him the extra confidence to move in. The lockdown from Hurrywin is there. Actually takes Neil quite low, so that's a good glimpse at the damage that this Giannis will still be able to do through a Void Stone for Neil. And it's full-blown retreat now for the Knights, right as this Fury is respawning. It's the Oni Fury this time around, so eUnited, maybe with a touch of map control here, Gore, could start up this big Fury to maybe turn the tides.
Yeah, an 18.5-minute Oni Fury. This is a very essential win for a team, and with no Neil, it makes it so much easier.
Scary D is there. eUnited have locked down the Oni Fury. It's Cubo Fred on the backline who's being chased, but one more time it's a Fury and then a disengage. Snoopy pops the ultimate, but cancels it immediately. And that's a big one here. I mean, map control isn't out of control really by any means. It's just the long lane tier 1 tower that's down on the eUnited side of the map. But that is just going to give you an extra little nudge. Open up your space a little bit. There's been, jungle invades from the Knights trying to strip away this purple buff. Obviously saw, Neil over on the blue buff side of the map against eUnited just a moment ago. So these Oni waves may be coming at the perfect time for eUnited. 4K gold down in this one.
It's the pressure you need in the lanes to allow you to maybe take some fights over here in the jungle. Specifically, look at Neil and Paul right now, right? You can maybe find a good way to pick them off in the meantime. Or worst case scenario, you just go get some much needed farm to try and take away any of these little small level leads. I mean, 2 levels there in the duo, it's big if Snoopy can farm it up.
How many times have we seen this? Neil walking into the eUnited side of the jungle in the lockdown. My goodness, Variety will get the kill. First kill for one of the solo laners here in this game. Scream still on that killing spree from earlier. Will charge through, charge away. It's the 1 kill and then done. Looks like the Pyromancer now for eUnited. That's kind of the next big moment in this game, Gore. Variety, the first one to capitalize, the first solo laner, I should say, to capitalize. 0-0-0 across the board for him and Scary D. Now we finally reached that point where the solo laners are going to rotate and start to make a difference here in some of these fights.
And that's the big thing. Earlier we were talking about it. Variety, that boulder, is really good at securing objectives, really good at making fights go your way as well. And right now, you lose Scream, you have to make a big play.
Cubo Fred has gotten that kill and aggressive under the tier 1 tower, waiting for Variety to drop back down, or a few members here of the Knights. The chase is on as the stun is there, but there's a good bit of healing from the Hercules to get him out alive. And suddenly the script may be flipped here, and luckily Variety with the boulder is going to knock out that entire wave, but it won't slow down Zapman. That's a stack Transcendence, an Asi, an Executioner all online. This Heimdall is going to take down towers quickly, and bad to worse, the mid lane tier 1 tower will go down as well.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I think what eUnited are doing appropriately, and the point I was trying to make is that, Variety has his own secure, but Neil, they're the ones, he's the one who keeps getting focused off, because when Neil has his ult, objectives like Fire Giant are easier to confirm. You know he's going to have it before that boulder is up, so get aggressive.
Variety catches the Scarab's Blessing, and that'll pull him back to safety. Half HP now on the Fire Giant. Cubo Fred so low. Somehow he survived here. And the Knights want no more of that Fire Giant attempt. This is actually a good split push, Gore, from Snoopy. He's knocked down both of the towers there in that long lane, gonna chip some damage away on that left side Phoenix. So right lane loses a tier 1, mid lane loses a tier 1 if you're eUnited. But the left side of this map has now been opened up.
And that's a 2-pronged win, maybe even 3-pronged win for eUnited, right? Left Phoenix is now exposed, which is the one that is most important in this game. If you get a Fire Giant or you just win a team fight, you take that one and it puts pressure opposite side map of the Fire Giant. So now all of a sudden maybe you could look to make plays like the Knights just tried. But that Scarab's Blessing gets Variety to stay in the game again, which wards away the Fire Giant. Knights still won it, but that boulder's back. They can potentially go back in for this fight.
Knights really want this FG wall, maybe just inches away from locking in Variety there. We'll force him off to the side. Cubo Fred has 3 members of eUnited bearing down on him. Hurrywind through space and time, just used Neil, knocked back into the rest of the team fight, but Scary D, he's there as well. Variety catches a little bit of damage, blink forward from the Achilles, and it's full-on retreat mode now from eUnited. Neil is low, but he wants to set this fight up for the rest of his team, but a great disengage from eUnited is going to keep themselves at full strength. I wonder, Gore, if the Knights, again, are going to go back and try to force this fire.
Well, they're going to force it, but, I mean, watch. Zap had his vision out. He knows they're coming. They were watching them the whole time. They're looking for a pick still.
Wow, Neil gets deleted by Snoopy here. It's a 4v5, but that won't dissuade the Knights from moving themselves in. Cubo Fred in on the backline. That's a shell for some good shielding for the backliners of eUnited. Cubo Fred's going to get taken down. That's 2 here in this fight. The turnaround from Snoopy is in full effect. And now, Gore, maybe eUnited are the ones who are going to start up the FG.
I mean, it's just been such a huge investment into Variety and trying to kill off this Hercules, and they haven't been able to isolate him. The Scarab's Blessing the first time around helped save it, but now it's just plain old Hercules. It's Variety playing the way Variety wants to, and well, he's finding himself a solo kill.
Gore, this one has been busted wide open. Could be the slow deicide here. 23 minutes into the game, eUnited have taken the FG. They're going to knock down Scary D and Neil back off of the respawn from earlier. It won't be the deicide, but just by a few seconds. And this could be the right side. Phoenix, this game has immediately been flipped. Look at that gold chart, the XP chart. 3K gold now in the lead for eUnited. 6K in the experience department. These are some long death timers.
An Olympic swimmer is jealous of that dive that chart is making right there. I mean, that is well done by eUnited. And remember that 3-pronged win I was talking about earlier? The third part that I didn't get to highlight, it's all in Snoopy, right? Yeah, he's 2-2 and 4. Slashline, maybe not the most stellar. Maybe he's not making the most impact. But he was a level behind Zapman 3 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago. That push on the left side earlier, even though he wasn't there, got him a lot of much-needed farm. Got him not only back into this game, but so much so that he was in that fight and maybe essential for this team again. It's been quiet, but his damage is slowly on the rise. The same thing can be said for Hurrowwind. It's not the most kill-tacular game for them, but they've been able to turn around a lot of the engagements the Knights are looking for and just flip the script on them right on its head.
And look at how uncomfortable Paul was in that last fight. I mean, 25 minutes into this game, full build, saved the Blessing now, and sold boots later on for Paul. And he really, I mean, he's top of the damage charts, don't get me wrong, but after a couple picks there, he kind of just got run down and was unable to do anything. No actives available for him now. 25 minutes in for the next minute or so. In these pivotal moments where you need this Merlin to kind of help turn things around, maybe due to no fault of his own, Paul was just heavily identified there by eUnited, and they kept him mitigated. And as mentioned, Beads, Aegis both down for a minute. If eUnited go searching for a fight, Paul could be caught out again.
All right, now Zap's pushing a tier 2 and losing a tier 2 in the process, so maybe nullifying this as a whole, but he has to get back because the Phoenixes are all exposed. With Wright already being down, I mean, you need your Heimdall here more than anything. Like you said, with Paul getting run down as much as it is, Zap's damage makes a huge impact, and that ult is necessary right now to just get someone out of the fight for a little bit, make it a little easier to find your picks. I mean, they've been going so in on Variety and unable to lock him down. There's no blink for Neil, so he can't necessarily be that Ymir initiator that you need. I think Zap's going to be, again, just a huge portion of making sure this fight can go the way Knights need it to.
It's Neil, who's really just kind of walked at eUnited time and time again, worked out earlier, but maybe not quite as much here recently. Scream takes the portal forward. You'd think he's caught out, but maybe that's right where he wants to be. A stun down onto Genetics, and that's a cavalry charge defensively from Scream. There's the damage you want to see from Paul. Look at that pullback. Melted down onto the Guan Yu. Genetics takes some chip damage as well. A perfect start to this defense for the Knights.
And exactly what we like to highlight whenever there's a healer on the board. Look at the out-of-combat healing. Scream, well, he's kind of low right now. Genetics not full health, but they don't have to back off. They're not going for a Fury. They don't have to look at anything else. They just sit there where the tier 2 used to be, and they heal it right back up because they still have 30 seconds to try and get this Phoenix.
Paul is going to defensively position himself here. Look at that wall from Neil. Is going to separate eUnited here in this fight. Zapman is connected on the ultimate. And down comes crashing Scream here with the Scarab's Blessing from range. That's Genetics saving the life of his jungler. No kills somehow on the board just yet, but some ultimates burnt. Urwin through space and time coming back up, but a massive utility tool in that Scarab's Blessing is now down. Gore, this Fire Giant buff is going to fall off. Yeah, the Knights lost, a couple of towers. The right side Phoenix went down as well, but I think the Knights have to be happy with the way that one panned out.
Especially considering what they did just before it. Not only do they showcase how good their defense can be, I mean, Neil with a perfect wall to separate the team makes things awkward. Again, Zap removes someone. It doesn't matter whether you get the kill right afterward or if it's just making the fight a 4v5 for a little bit. You're making it so much harder to siege into a Phoenix because of that. And you slow them down. You burn that Fire Giant belt off of them. Yes, you still lost the right Phoenix, but Zap got a tier 2 in return. Remember, like, he was able to get a lot of pressure on that map. There's only 2 towers left for eUnited. And so you're 28 minutes in, you're down, but you're nowhere near out. Like, the gold lead is still something that you can take over, and soon enough, with the way items are going, it's not going to make that big a difference. The hardest part is going to be contesting this next Fire Giant.
We've reached a level of equality here with, maybe build-wise, at least gold. Genetics 3 levels ahead of Neil, but that's that same conversation we've had around this Ymir where it's the utility, if you get a wall and a freeze, you're 2 levels down, 4 levels from everyone else in this game. I'm not going to be all that worried. This could be a big 1v1 here, Gore. It's Variety versus Zapman. Boulder will chunk him down, but what does Variety have here? Support in the form of Snoopy. Look at that Bifrost, takes him all the way away. And that's just a distraction. eUnited are going to be able to take away this Fire Giant one more time and give themselves another shot. Right side Phoenix has respawned, and it's going to be the Knights tested on the defense once more.
The biggest thing I think that showcases, there's no true 1v1 when Snoopy has his ult, right? There's no way to get away with it. So you have to be very careful of what engagements you take, specifically around the timers you have it. Right now, Knights should know that's not available, so maybe you can look for a fight. But Variety is 2-0-4. This Hercules, I cannot underline how important he has been enough for this game. I mean, a lot of the picks he's had, a lot of the disruption he has in the backline. I mean, even now, he's looking to try and get Neil or Paul just out of the way immediately.
Well, it's a split here. One member of the Knights on the left defending against 2 of eUnited. And Scary D, he's looking worse for wear. Scream will move in, grab himself the kill. It's Cubo Fred here, though. trying to find the assist. Snoopy in and out of the wall will be able to stay safe. That's a through space and time rather from Hurrywind that connects for some good chunk damage. Or on a Cubo Fred, Neil taken low in the mid lane. That's the knockup from Variety, but Neil won't connect on the stun. On the back foot, Zapman knocked into the rest of eUnited here. Right side, Phoenix still half HP, but there's a wave taking that one down. Left side, Phoenix much the same, but with a couple members of eUnited just trying to chip away Goremizer. These are tense moments here, and now you're missing a tool in Scary D that's ever so important.
Yeah, I think that, again, maybe one of the more essential portions of your team fight, not having that assassinate that's going to be available to come through, the execute, I should say, that's there, as well as just his presence, his stun, his frontline progress that he can give to the team. There's a lot Scary D is giving, and they just kind of hung him out to dry there, but it showcased what that Guan Yu can do. Again, the protection shred he brings makes it real hard to be a frontline in this game. You have to be very careful when you're engaging on it. His ult has that stun, again, the out-of-combat healing. You put him and Snoopy in front of any objective against one, I would even say 2 members of eUnited, of the Knights, it's going to go pretty well for them.
I feel like we have, Scary D, 3rd in the game in damage, but it's a quiet 15k damage, I feel like. We haven't seen the execute get anyone yet. He's got a 0 in the kill column, just that 1 assist, Variety at 204. The Hercules, just maybe by virtue of the way these team fights have flowed, has just been able to make a bigger impact. That's not to say Scary D won't, melt that health bar. He's got a shifter shield, a heart seeker as well. Maybe it's just going to take the proper opening for this Achilles to find a team fight that works for him.
It's the avenue he gets in there that is, again, like you said, most important. But, what happens if you take the wrong step? All of a sudden you're pushed against a wall by Variety, you're stunned by Scream, or you're plucked by Genetics. There's 3 ways that they can lock you down. Oh, and I forgot about the portal there from Hurrywind as well. So maybe make it 4 ways they can lock you down. You have to be very careful engaging on the eUnited, because time and time again they're showing us what their CC chain can do. And it could be Neil, it means he's dead. It could be Zap. Whoa. Unfortunately, it might mean he's dead.
What HP does Zap have? My God, he gets away alive there. We've seen that interaction constantly. Yeah, it's over 100 now, but that's a few ticks of his passive healing. So Zapman narrowly escaping death. That could have been kind of backbreaking there for the Knights, especially with Fire Giant buff still on 5 members of eUnited. We've seen that time and time again from eUnited. Now, a handful of times where they rotate through, they send out the through space in time. Snoopy is right there on the attempted kill with the ultimate. Unable to find it, though, so Zapman escapes alive as well. The Bifrost, a decent cooldown, especially if you're going that far away. But no actives burnt there. Aegis, Beads still on board. It was 65 HP that he lived with. I don't think eUnited are going to be that worried about it. There's going to be another FG attempt, presumably, here in about 1 minute and 15 seconds. But Zapman being able to live there is maybe a big breath of fresh air for the Knights.
And what does it say about Zap's level-headedness that the man didn't sweat? He didn't panic Beads, he didn't Aegis through all of that. He just stood inside of it, knew he was going to be able to teleport in time. 65 HP is a close bet to take Dave, and that is not one that I think a lot of people would be able to make in that. And so I think that's huge for him to keep his relics through that. Now you can already see he's got it, his Bifrost back up off cooldown, so he can use it to teleport, and he's even moved it to where it's going to be more pertinent. He doesn't need to deal with that left-hand side anymore, or maybe even more important, he needs to be able to teleport over to the Fire Giant at any given time. So having 1 crystal over there is keeping Zap in this fight. It might take a little bit, and it might cost a large cooldown depending on where he is when he initiates it. But it keeps him available for his team. And worst case scenario, he doesn't use it. Now he has a free escape right there for his fight in case things go wrong.
We've talked a decent amount about Scary D and maybe not having the impact that he would hope for on the damage potential build that we've seen out of the Achilles up to this point. There is a teleport online for Scary D, but not for Variety. At the moment, though, that won't make much of a difference as the Achilles is here as well, but maybe opening the door to a different rotation later on. That's a good wall from Neil to lock in Variety, but instead it's the Knights who are trapped in there with them. Neil will slow a couple down. Hurrywind will find the portal for some good damage. Scream, his cavalry charged in, but another great wall will lock him in place. The execute won't reach the Scarab's blessing here, but look at that, Gore. 4 ultimates used for eUnited. Some aggressively, some defensively, but that might make this FG a touch harder.
You know what I love most about that? That was a showcase, literally, of everything eUnited have in perfect succession, all in one team fight. The amount of careful play you have to approach them with, or else Variety's going to push you back, and that starts the CC chain. The amount that Variety doesn't just care. He does not care about the damage you're dealing to him. He's Hercules. He's just fine with it. And then, of course, how well they can get out of there using that Scarab's Blessing, the disengage from Scream. Right now, it's the question of whether or not they can actually secure themselves a Fire Giant. I like that Zap's just standing just outside the crystal. Doesn't know if he's needed yet.
Fire Giant taken down. Scream, though, deleted by Cubo. Fred elsewhere. Really the first fight we've seen from eUnited on the back, but here in the last few minutes, Variety will toss out the boulder, will connect for a kill. Paul moves his way into the front and gets the kill over onto the Hercules. This game may have just flipped once again. Zapman has joined the fight, gotten the ultimate down onto Genetics. And that's a dead Scarab. Genetics falls down. It's going to be the FG started up. And eUnited, they lose 3.
And that's the balance of the way the last fight just went. eUnited, yeah, they found a lot of defense. They even made the Knights back off. But they used 4 of their ults in order to do so. Some to disengage, some to save lives. They didn't have them coming up into the Scream, just got his back. Soon enough, you'll see the Boulder, as well as Genetics getting that Scarab's Blessing. But there were just more tools in the toolbox for the Knights to engage with.
Massive wave on the right-hand side of this map for eUnited. The Knights, though, Gore, they don't look too worried about that. They're going to try to crack this this eUnited base, rather, as quickly as possible. For good reason. 5 seconds left on Scream, but 15 to 20 seconds on the other 2 members of eUnited. Middle Phoenix chipped away here by Zapman. Looks like that's all the Knights are going to look for, but how fast that Phoenix just died? They still got another 3.5 minutes on this Fire Giant. It's going to be a massive map swing, I get the feeling, here for the Knights.
Snoopy needs to finish this and get out as fast as possible. Now he's maybe going to be safe, but the Knights know he's in the area. If this back does not get off fast enough, this is a dangerous zone to be in.
Well, Snoopy uses the ultimate, but down he goes right by Fred. I don't want to drop down by a Pele. Instead, Fred is the one who nearly goes down. Snoopy does get out alive. And he has the wherewithal to save the beads, save the Aegis as well. Granted, use the ultimate, didn't have the opening here. But Zapman trying to back underneath this Fury, and he's not able to get out. Scream, Cavalry charges his way in there. Paul will try to disengage some of this fight on either side, melting away the health bar of the jungler. Variety has found his way into the backline. Boulder drops down over onto Zapman, but instead the damage is returned to sender. Variety down for the next minute. Hurrywind has to leave thanks to one of his portals. Paul, he's deep in here on a chase. I don't know if he wins a 3v1. That's the Aegis used. Scream, pulled back in. Scarab's Blessing now. Over onto the Guan Yu, but the flicker away. Cubo Fred, he's here to help as well. Scream, taken low, but not low enough. Genetics knocked back, and the rest of the Knights are here. A double kill from Cubo Fred. And Gore, this base might just break open.
And they keep the one most important structure killer alive, Zapman, throughout all of that. You have Paul as well to help shred through this. But, I mean, both Paul and Zap, and maybe Zap even more so, they're just built to kill any tanks that stand in front of them. Whether that tank is a tower or a Phoenix, it doesn't matter. And Paul has no mana, no health, but he's still here.
Somehow he stayed alive there. Hurrywind was looking for the kill. Scream may just get it, but what does it matter when your Titan is going to end up falling here at the end of the day? The Knights move their way in. Some respawns from eUnited, but they won't be in time. The final shot will go to the Knights, and in 38 minutes, PK takes game number 1.
That one mid-Phoenix defense for the Knights was maybe one of the most important moments. If they lose that, this game is done, 18 minutes ago? Like, it's just done so much sooner. And we are, talking about how eUnited are just one game away from potentially sealing their fate. But with the Knights taking that fight, and then I think the next most important one, or depending on where you're looking at it, the most important for them to take control is that one around Fire Giant, where they strip eUnited of all those ults. It just gave them everything they needed to start taking those fights. Zapman hit late game where he had all those his full build, where he just did not care about Variety's health bar anymore, and that made it so much easier.
And there was this big shift in this game where Paul, despite being towards the top of the damage charts, was getting bullied out of those fights by eUnited. By the end of it, Paul was going in, looking for the fight, staying alive. Stays alive twice around the turn there towards the end of the game. The Knights, Cubo Fred, they talk about trying to peak at the right time, moving into the playoffs for Phase 1 and next weekend. Well, game 1 indicates a team that's playing pretty well. Finch is on the desk to let us know what he thinks.
Hey, I think the Knights have already shown us they're pretty good at peaking at the right time, huh? That Worlds win from last year certainly would speak to that, and they seem to be doing something similar here right now as they play really well up against eUnited in this game number 1. Though it wasn't all smooth sailing for them, Mifflin. They had some struggles in that mid-game when eUnited win a great fight around the Fire Giant. They make this whole right-side push, and it kind of looks like the game is in their control. How does this one slip out of eUnited's grasp and the Knights end up with the W?
I think it could really be boiled down to Neomah giveth and he taketh. In the early game, he goes 0-3, and that's where we see eUnited start to hit their pace. So PK still overstep a little bit. Neomah goes into the red buff alone around the 18-minute mark, gets forced back with the rest of his team by Hurrywin's Yanis ult, and then eUnited get a free Gold Fury, and it looks like it's going to be smooth sailing from there. But PK's Phoenix defense was just way too clean. eUnited don't have really any way to engage from a distance. Their ranged poke is really lacking with a draft that they have, and what's that mean? PK has a pretty easy time defending, and United never really got a chance to go back and try again.
They didn't. The Knights did a great job recovering, and I don't know how many times the Knights have to do that as a squad. SK Gaming did it all last year, and it's been a part of their identity this year too. I think that they're very much this sort of U-shaped type team where they have this stellar early game that sometimes they can use to win the game outright, and if not, they'll wait till 45 minutes, man, and they'll just play defense after defense until you make a mistake, and then they'll punish you for it. The Knights have shown a willingness to do it time and time again.
It's a draining play style, though, being willing consistently to wait it out 40 minutes, defend for 20 minutes straight. It's so draining, and if you do it early on in a series, in game 1 of a best-of-3, you defend for 50 minutes and you lose, that's going to take all the wind out of your sails for the next game. But the Knights have so much veteranship. They've been around the scene for so long, especially with Zapman at the helm, that I imagine they don't let too much morality play into their decision-making.
I don't think so. I think these guys are able to stay in good spirits. But what about some of these odd picks here at Mifflin? Talk to me about the Guan Yu jungle, the Herc solo, the Giannis, if you prefer. Do you think that eUnited with this sort of... I mean, we said it kind of the whole draft. It didn't feel like quite as good of a draft as what the Knights had. Do you think they hamstrung themselves at all with some of these picks?
You said it to me backstage. You said eUnited aren't picking the best characters. They're picking characters that they like, that they're good at. And I think that rings true. But that said, Hercules, I don't care that you like it. His best time in the game is pre-10, maybe around level 12. Out of solo, he doesn't really get that much impact. He's just going to be playing on that island. When you get the Guan Yu into the jungle, you have this fantastic resource inside of Scream who can absolutely hyper carry a game, but he's playing something more support oriented and it's just not working out for him. And having all these tanky picks on the side of United means that Zapman can very easily go that tank buster build that we saw, and he was swinging on genetics for like 350 in auto in the late game, and no one's going to burst him because you have no assassin. Your mage is a Yanis. Sure, he's got damage, but it's not the type that's going to 100-0 someone when the rest of your team is kind of getting blown up themselves.
I think that it's great you brought up that build from Zapman, though, on the Heimdall, because that was a big part of the problem in the late game for eUnited, was that anyone that stood in his way, tanky or no, was going to die in 3 to 4 shots, right? I mean, that was a big problem for them. We also did see some of that Giannis inconsistency, didn't we? I mean, how many ultimates did we count, backstage where we were just kind of watching this and think, I don't know, man, I don't think they got any value out of it. You're just kind of letting them fly. I think that's how it works when you play Giannis. Some of them hit, but most of them honestly don't.
It's so much luck with Giannis ult. I don't care if you're the best Giannis player in the world, which Hurrywin is. You're not going to hit over 50% of these long-range ultimates. I counted 5 that he lands, and they did swing the fight, but the utility and mobility that Hurrywin brought got them a lot there. Like, around the 18 minutes earlier, I pointed out that Giannis ult really did confirm them the Gold Fury because it forces PK to back off. I think that having comfort picks is fine, but you can't completely forego the meta like eUnited did.
It's tough, man. You could easily say this is something that just came down to execution as well, right? That even with some of these picks, they were in a position to win. So I think a lot for eUnited to look at as they get ready for the picks and bans now for game number 2. They're trying to make some adjustments here to find this win. Remember, if eUnited can get the 2-0 here, then it really don't matter what Renegades do tomorrow. eUnited made their way into playoffs. But if they drop here, then suddenly they have to root for Obey to find a way to get that victory and still get eUnited into the actual playoffs. So this is their chance, I think, to have their fate in their own hand, and they got to make sure they come to this game 2 ready for it.
But those stakes, the stakes that you just brought up, going into an 0-1 set now, that's gotta be weighing on their minds. That's scary stuff. Your LAN life, or your tournament life rather, your playoffs life, it really rides on this game. eUnited have to win. You can't hope that Obey is going to be able to beat Renegades. I know Obey's been trending up recently, but they still are the bottom-seeded team, and Renegades certainly aren't that. So eUnited, if you really want to win, if you want to go to playoffs, I think you have to take it into your own hands, and that's scary thinking.
And remember, those were both teams that were hit with that competitive ruling we saw come out this morning. So it is almost impossible to predict how that game's going to go. You do not want to leave your fate up to that, I don't think, if you're eUnited here at this point. So instead, you got to find some kind of way to right the ship. They did a lot of things really well. I know you gave the Hercules pick a hard time. It just goes to show how good Variety is, because he still actually had a pretty good game, but it just wasn't quite enough. There are a lot of good things that eUnited had in that first game. They just got to make sure they're channeling them to find some way to win here in Game 2. And so far, though, I mean, if we're seeing some fairly similar picks and bans, but the Knights not going to let Genetics play the Kepri again.
Makes sense. Genetics on this Kepri got so many Scarab's Blessings that really did keep eUnited in fights a lot longer than they should have.
Yeah.
Might as well get rid of that frustration point. Makes sense. And what are you really worried about now? Genetics said that he might be able to get his Horus. That might just be where he goes.
I think this is a good time to talk about the Heimdall, though, because we saw Zap doing something kind of odd in that last Fire Giant fight, right? Trying to bide some time in the long lane and being ready to Bifrost over to the Fire Giant fight if they needed him. Did you see a whole lot of value come out from that playstyle?
I think that the idea is there. Yeah, you can use it as a semi-global rotation. It's essentially a relic teleport, right? Like, you can use it that way. But Zapman, in that one specific scenario around that last Fire Giant where he just sat in lane for about 20 seconds thinking about whether or not he really wanted to rotate, my man could have just walked over. He could have just been in the fight to begin with, or he could have kept split pushing because PK had already won that engagement. So right there in that one play, I say Zapman kind of just wasted a cooldown, but can't argue with the results. They get a triple kill into a Fire Giant off the tail end of it. I'm sure he's not feeling too bad. But that's the utility that Heimdall brings. He's got the safety. He's got damage. He can move around the map incredibly easily. And I think all of that put together with someone at the helm like Zapman makes for a potent combo.
Yeah, it sounds like you at least like the potential of it going forward. Maybe just in that particular instance, it didn't quite pan out. Let's catch up a little bit, though, in these picks and bans. Herwind gonna be showing us the Baba Yaga here in a do-or-die situation for eUnited. They're gonna pair that with Genetics on the Horus. So, again, we're gonna see eUnited on maybe some picks that aren't the most popular right this second, but that have become very ubiquitous with their current playstyle.
That's a lot of confidence to take Baba Yaga. You know that early game is weak. Herwin's probably the best Baba Yaga specialist in the world right now. He's the only one we've seen consistently playing it. And how long has he really been playing it? This god's only been uncomp banned for, what, 2 weeks now? He can't have that much practice. He must have a lot of faith in his own skill and a capability to execute on this god to take it out in this do-or-die situation.
And Myth, I think Hurry's earned it at this point. I don't think that Tyler gets quite enough credit for how well that he has played across the last year and a half or so. And I think eUnited have to look at him as one of their pillars. So if he says in this big moment, Baba Yaga's the one, then I think I trust him, man. So they're going to make this pick, and we're going to get a chance to see if that value will materialize. On the other side, though, the Knights have a sneaky good draft of their own. Paul and Merlin will always scare me. We already covered Heimdall's great sort of all his applications, and the Osiris now as well. So the Knights are starting to look good with their draft here too.
I like that you call the Knights draft sneaky good, because if I were to just look at these two drafts isolated, I would say that the Knights are playing the meta. This could be any team. You could remove the name Knights up there, and just about anyone would draft this. This could very well be a Sanguine team comp, whereas eUnited, again, are leaning towards these more comfort picks. Huyi's a little bit more standard. Horus has fallen out of favor as the week's gone on, but Genetics really does like that pick. Baba Yaga is a little bit off-brand. We see only really Hurrywin running that. Cerberus is kind of the SOT special. We'll see how they do it on eUnited. But overall, I would say that PK's draft makes a lot of sense and works really well, and it transitions into the late game. They've got a lot of tools that just work well together. eUnited's going to have a lot of execution focus to make sure that they can get ahead and stay afloat in the early game.
I can't believe Ares got picked 9th and I won't have a chance to talk about it, because I must go instead to the 10th pick set for eUnited in the jungle here for Scream. Scream is another one of those players where if he calls for a pick, I'm giving it to him. Talk to me about how you expect the set to perform here.
this guy's going to want to get aggressive, but he's going to have to hedge his bets. So if it's Robin jungle, which it likely is, he's going to have a very hard time fighting into that early. Around level 9, Set should hit his power spike and start to outscale this Robin. Then we're going to see Scream really start to run it down. He's got easy targets inside of Merlin. Heimdall, if his ultimate's down, you could very easily blow him up. There's a lot of burst potential that comes out of Set. It's just, I'm still very worried. You have this weak-ish early game in Set. His levels 1 through 5, not very good. Baba Yaga, levels 1 through 12, pretty bad. If PK decide to run it down the mid lane, I'm worried about how eUnited are going to be able to respond.
Plus, we've seen Snoopy have a really good performance on the Set ADC. I don't think that's very likely here with the current draft that we have, Mifflin, but I think this is a team that is comfortable playing with Set, which could be a big strength for them. Game number 2, if eUnited want to control their destiny, they gotta win here.
And when you want to control your own destiny, Gore, I suppose you go to a couple picks. Well, maybe one that has worked for you, one that is interesting. Scream on the Set. Luckily, we have a little bit more time, I think, to sink our teeth into it, because there is a lot I want to look at here. But let's pick up right where that desk led off. And the Robin versus the Set matchup here in the jungle, and what that dynamic might look like early into that mid-game. Of course, the Robin good at moving that early into the mid-game. What do you make of Scream here on the Set?
I think Scream, first off, I think that one of the first players outside of Cyclone Spin to be picking us up, and definitely one of the few times we actually get to see him in the jungle instead of over there as a carry. He is more or less like going to be playing keep up with Cuvo Fred early on. I expect to see this Robin have a little bit more pressure onto Hurwind, especially since we already know Hurwind isn't going to have the cleanest early game. A lot of this for eUnited is trying to outlast the Knights, and I think they have the draft to be able to do it, to keep them locked down long enough to let that happen, but they do have to be careful. There's a lot of aggression on the Knights that it's a slippery slope if you misstep.
And I think a lot of the aggression with Neil on this Ares. Yeah. Well, it was either SCC or maybe somewhere in the SPL, or it could have been SOC, where we saw a Ares in the jungle, I believe it was, and they just kind of walked at people and burned beads. the potential of getting hit with a chain and then just walked down, whether it's in the jungle or here in the long lane, is certainly high. And it's going to be an interesting interaction to watch a Horus and an Ares, two gods with decent kill potential, go toe-to-toe.
Well, I'll kind of sort of answer your question. Just in saying, it wasn't the SBL. The only time we've seen Ares SBL-wise prior to this, he was banned in Week 5 by Space Station, and that it was a second phase ban against Ghost, so we haven't actually gotten to see him. He's only showed up in that ban column, and even then it was 5 weeks ago, so there's not been a lot of opportunity for him.
Scream is here. He wants to make an impact early, and he's going to get the chance to. Zapman, a touch too far on the opposite side of the map, and the Set strikes early. First blood over to eUnited. Neomaz going to get locked down here. Snoopy in on the up-down. The last bit of mana for Neil used to throw some flames, and that'll keep him alive here. So nearly a couple of kills, but it is one nonetheless for Scream.
I mean, being able to get yourself off that early on is huge for Scream, right? Being able to find that kill. Darth, you're already shutting down Zapman, who was huge in making sure that the team was so, I mean, I guess destructive at the end of last game is the only word I can think to use it. I mean, he was shredding tanks like it was nothing. So you slow that one down over there in the duo. I like the fact that we see Neil use his 3 because he knows he's going to be knock-up immune, but you had just highlighted genetics and the kill potential that comes out of the Horus. And he even said it in his interview how much he likes this pick. It's not surprising to see them get aggressive with it.
And they want to keep things going here onto the purple buff, and it looks like it's actually Zapman that's able to lock it down. Genetics taken low on the wrong side of the map here. He's wandered a bit too far. Paul rotates on in. Who gets the kill? It's the mid laner for the Knights, and that's a big return kill, especially against Hurwind, a god that we were able to talk about last week. Hurwind won with it. Haven't gotten to talk about it in this game yet, but getting an early lead over Baba Yaga and then forging that into something else later is so important because of that scaling.
And the struggles that we saw of Paul last game were a lot of early game, I guess, pokes at him, right? Going deep just to kill off that Merlin, focusing him down. if he gets ahead, it gets even harder to do that. I mean, look how big those Void Stance abilities are. I mean, even his Ice Stance abilities are huge. It's hard to engage on him without taking a lot of damage. You give him a lead where mid is already the place you get the most farm, and it's going to be just smooth sailing for him in order of control that's going to be around his fights.
Well, Variety is maybe wondering why Scary D is still hanging around here. Well, it's because Cubo Fred is just around the corner. I think we've checked in on solo lane a couple of times up to this point. On both separate occasions, one or the other between Scary D and Variety have been very, very low. And if there were a jungler from either team in range, likely would have been a kill flipping one way or the other. A fun matchup to look at, a totally new one here in Game 2 of this set. And Osiris up against that Cerberus. Something we've seen absolutely in the solo lane is the Cerberus. Is it something that you like eUnited working towards here?
I like it. I think it strips away something Neil's comfortable with. And honestly, if you want to look at it, Variety's ult is Ares' ult, but different, right? I mean, it does the same thing. Hey, I'm going to take this group in the circle, and I'm going to put them here. For Ares, that here is right under him. For Cerberus, it's in front of him. But either way, you get to position them up for your team. So I think it's going to be a good either counter-engage or engage, depending on how the fight is going for the team. But I also think it's safe. He has a good amount of sustain for himself. He's got some anti-heal that's going to, again, help as they transition into the late game. Maybe no big healers on the side of the Knights, but when you expect to see some lifesteal picked up by Zap, maybe going the Aussie again this time around, like it's going to help in picking them off in those ways, more or less.
It's little things that can make a big difference. Neil is here looking towards the purple buff, but Snoopy will use the up-down in order to capitalize on that one. We've now reached level 5 here, and typically that's when you look, for some of those junglers to start to rotate, make bigger impacts, and maybe here in the long lane, the Sunbreaker will open things up for a kill. Neil has to use the ultimate. He's going to pull back in too, but Scream has rotated his way over to the long lane for the second time this game. And for the second time this game, Scream will pick himself up a kill, getting this set rolling early. A perfect start for eUnited.
So one of the things that catches me off guard just so far about this game is earlier in that solo lane when Scary D, he was getting pressured out, but I mean, he had Variety pretty low, and Cuba was in the area, right? Potentially able to go in for a gank, but he just kind of didn't go in. He didn't even try to go and win that fight. Stood there for a little while, then backed. Whereas Scream, he was in there. He knew exactly where he wanted to be, and he wanted to be a part of that fight immediately when he saw the opportunity.
And this is good communication, I think, here from the Knights. Realizing Variety is so low, teleport is going to be up for the Cerberus here in a few seconds. Scary D just slowing down that back, but this is what's coming to fruition now. A blue buff invade for the Knights, realizing the solo lane pressure is going to be a touch mitigated here for a moment. Do have to be careful, as mentioned, the teleport now back off of cooldown. So you got to be cautious of overstaying here if you're the Knights. And it looks like Neil, just hovering around, has reached that point where he can rotate through. Variety didn't opt for the beads here. Scary D with the teleport as well. It's Genetics who's rotated over to the solo lane side. That's a knock-up over onto the Ares. A brutal start to this game for the long lane. Could get worse here as Variety just burning away down onto the Ares. Neil with some good side steps to blink away as well. Is he going to be able to get alive? No way. His Hurry Wind will collapse, and now the Baba Yaga has gotten a kill on the board.
And again, you were talking about it, maybe trying to get Paul ahead of Heroin, keep that going for you. Unfortunately, I think that kill might pull those reins back a little bit. Just enough to keep Heroin in that conversation. And again, as we transition into the late game, it's going to make the big difference. It's also important to notice, watch his consumables throughout this game, anybody, because every now and then you're going to see him throw out his 2. Sometimes it is going to be for damage, like we see in team fights. A lot of the time, he's looking for that key potion. He's looking for the max damage he can have and storing that so he can use it later.
Oh, Scary D playing with fire is going to be able to leap out and stay alive. Earlier on, just prior to that cut over to the solo lane, Zapman and Snoopy were going toe-to-toe, and Zapman definitely worse off after that trade, so Neil will move his way back over to this long lane. It's been a tale of 2 junglers here, Gore, I think, in game number 2, where Scream has been able to impact all of the kills up to this point. This set has been swinging early, 2-0-1, and Cubo Fred may be on the Robin that you expect to be having this impact in this early to mid game. Well, we haven't seen him do much of anything just yet.
Yeah, as much as he is, I don't want to say more dominant than Set early on, but as much as you expect him to be dominant early on, he hasn't really been able to, again, start off any of these kills, hasn't gone for any big ganks, hasn't been a big part of any of these fights. And I would argue, especially in this case, that Set is now more equipped to control this mid-game than you're going to see out of the Raven. Maybe that's going to transition, but, I mean, with his ult available, with the amount of control they have and where exactly Scream has been on the map and where they're willing to get aggressive, he's not shying away from any important fights, I think is the biggest thing.
Right.
As long as he's willing to go in and do that, he just is going to age like a fine wine throughout this game. The longer it goes on, the better he'll be.
I suppose it is at least important for Cuvo when Scream has gotten off to the start that he has to maintain a high level of farm, keep himself close levels-wise. I mean, you see there, I mean, maybe it's half a level just now evening things up at level 9. So while Scream hasn't been able to kind of force an impact on any sides of the map just yet, he's at least kept himself in that conversation. Now Neil, though, and then I mentioned, a few minutes ago before some sparse fights started to break out, you look at this Ares, he's got himself Blink, you've got his ultimate online. Even if you're not getting kills, you look at the 3 beads over there for eUnited. Burning those down are going to be important. Not going to get the chance here as Neil is deleted by Snoopy. In a brutal game so far for this Ares, 0-3-1, and that might open up the Gold Fury.
Yeah, it was kind of the premise that we set up for his Ymir game. It didn't happen. I guess it just got delayed too much. I don't know what happened for him, but the performance definitely doesn't feel like it should be happening as much on the Ares, but I mean, admittedly, look at his kit. He doesn't necessarily put himself in danger a ton, but he has to chase you down in order for a lot of his damage to matter, for his abilities to matter. And so, yeah, if he hits that chain, he has to keep chasing you. If he wants the fire to connect, he has to keep chasing you. And if you are standing just too far outside of his ult, then good luck. He's not going to be able to hit anything, and unfortunately, that leaves that man out to dry.
He's got to use the Bifrost to escape here. Yeah, the Ymir obviously kind of the immediate impact on the utility, the wall and the freeze and the slow and all of the kit immediately there. Neil just hasn't had the space to operate maybe just yet, but kind of the point I think still stands true despite the fact that he's now 0-3. You look at beads on Scream, beads on Hurrywin, beads on Snoopy. I think where we saw the Ares in the jungle succeed, and you maybe hope for similar now that Ares has reached the rotation point, is that you ideally are just walking at people, but Neil just hasn't had that space to operate just yet.
The good news is there's not a huge level deficit between him and Genetics, so he's still on par for where you need your support to be. Unfortunately, that does mean he's about 4 levels behind Hurrywin, a few levels there behind Snoopy, so he's going to have to take that all with a grain of salt. Looking for these fights, it's not going to be the easiest early on. But hey, you give them a little bit more time farming, and well, the good thing about tanks is they get their items online over time no matter what, right? Even if you are just shut down dramatically, as long as he can stay even or close to even with Genetics, he's going to get that tankiness. So even though it's maybe not the most impactful now, you could still expect it late game.
Here comes Scream over to the long lane once more, but a good disengage from Zapman thanks to the Bifrost will keep him alive. That's a really good point, Gore, and it's easy. I mean, this is a 4-1 game 12 minutes in, so certainly far from being over. Zapman doesn't have the escape here, but Neil might be able to pull back Scream. Beads used by the jungler, and now a killing spree for the set. So interesting to kind of stick around there when you know Scream and is still there, and the ultimate's still online for Genetics. That's a clean bit of calculation there for eUnited, and now the long lane continues to suffer. All 5 kills spread out between Neil and Zap.
And you get what you were talking about. You finally burn at least 1 beads on the other side, but maybe not quite in the way you wanted to. Most of the time when you're talking about that, it is like the jump in, burn the beads, so that then when your ult comes back up, especially if you go for something cooldown oriented, maybe help yourself out later on, you can just do it on cooldown, and eventually you're going to pull 2 or 3 people. No matter what, you should be able to get 1, right? And in the late game, ideally. But when the beads are used because, hey, I'm going to kill your carry and you can't stop me, that's how you know that the Knights are on the back foot. But they played so well from behind last game in a lot of those scenarios that I don't know if I can count Neil out just yet. I just don't think he's going to be the one to set it up. The problem is no one has been setting it up. If he's not there, I mean, Cuvo has been a part of nothing. No impact so far from the jungler.
Well, Zapman does not have his beads. Not sure the Bifrost is off of cooldown. Has been short range. Look at Cubo, though, getting aggressive. Still even. I think that's the point I was trying to get to just prior to Zapman getting re-dove. It's easy to kind of look at this 5-1, think it's doom and gloom, but we're still pretty close here. We're going to stay somewhat close as Neil is able to blink his way away. It's a 1, not even. It's a 300, 400 gold differential for the Knights. So if things feel like they've slowed down, and if it feels like the Knights have just been backing off and trying to stay alive here in this game, it's because they have, and they've been doing a good job of it. The Gold Fury Gore, though, for eUnited could be the first big swing. That's a To the Skies from Genetics, likely moving into the back here. Neil burning the ultimate to not get pulled in, back by Variety, still pulled, though, is that Gold Fury. Zapman has connected with the ultimate, but Hurrywind pops some damage down of his own. The dash forward, and Neil is taken down by Variety here. It's a 2 for none so far. eUnited still in a position maybe to succeed, but Cubo Fred finally has gotten involved, gotten himself a kill here on a team fight on the back end of the Fury Pit. A couple pulled back in. Cubo looking to disengage, but Paul and Scary D leap themselves back in. This is a messy back and forth engagement, Gore, but it looks like eUnited might have the last laugh.
Well, Scary D has a little bit of assistance there from Paul. And honestly, it might be enough. I mean, that's a low health bar to try and run away with it, but I think they're still hungry on the side of eUnited, so they're going to be able to find it. And there's just so many, again, small, nuanced choices that come down in that. And one of the things you had highlighted going into that was that, the Knights, maybe, 5-1 as the slash line is a little scary to think about. But it showcased that Scream was giving up farm when he's getting those ganks. That fight, you're not giving up farm. In fact, you're getting so much if you're eUnited scooping that away.
Yeah, it's a dream start here for them, and especially I think, Gore, if you look at what a lot of the devs talked about with picks and bans being the way they are, I mean, if you're able to delay into late where a Set and a Baba Yaga are fully online, maybe you're happy being even at 15 minutes. Obviously you want to lead, and there is a little one here for eUnited, but you can't scoff at the scaling that the Knights have either. You look at a Merlin in the mid, a Zapman on the Heimdall in this long lane. Who's maybe more happy with the state of the game here 15, 16 minutes in?
Well, right now, it definitely has to be eUnited. It feels much like it did last time when they're in the driver's seat. Maybe not so much that they're, controlling the objectives, but they've got a small, comfortable enough gold lead that realistically, with how much it is being split across all 5 players, should just translate to vision. You can see how many wards they have smattered across the map. They know what they're looking for, and they're keeping eyes on the Knights as they rotate around. But it really is the pressure. I mean, they've been winning these fights. Cubo finally was a big part of that engagement, that last fight, but it just feels like Scream is more jungler this game, right? You have Cubo going around farming, he's maybe getting the buffs, but there haven't been as many impactful ganks. Even now, he's caught between a rock and a hard place.
Watch out, Cubo. Snoopy, though, has to move himself away. Neil will connect a couple chains, and there's your beads burning potential with the Ares. Sunbreaker down, Scream left running away here from the rest of this fight. The space to operate for Cubo certainly there, but the collapse from Hurrywind is in full effect. The blink away defensively from the Robin will be there, and somehow it's Scream who's left closest to death. Pittsburgh Knights, though, health pool-wise, a touch lower. All 5 ultimates used by all teams there. No one, though, in the death column.
What's even better for that is, for Cubo, Neil, Zap, and well, I guess technically Paul in some sense, but Scream, Hurry, Genetics, and Stoopy, all 4 of them were in the fight. It makes sense their ults were used. I have no idea what was going on in solo. I guess Variety maybe trying to lock down Scary and Scary jumping out, but having them all used there, and it's going to do one of 2 things. You're either going to see a slow pace, no one's looking for an engagement for a little while kind of fight, or you're going to see, and what we are seeing is eUnited kind of force, Knights to make some uncomfortable decisions. What can you do without your ults? What do you have when you don't have your ults available? Because Scream, well, he's still popping off when he doesn't have his ult. Hurrywind, he hits just as hard even if he doesn't have Home Sweet Home. And Genetics is still healing him up, still has his lockdown. And so if Neil specifically doesn't have his ult to maybe engage or counter-engage, I don't know if the Knights feel as comfortable taking a fight.
Wow, look at this, though. They do feel comfortable starting up the Gold Fury. Scary D in on the rotation. Variety not in range. PK locked down.
Wow.
The Gold Fury. Scary D is just going to back himself off. Has the Thorns. Gonna have to pop him here. That's the ultimate down from Variety. Pulls back in a couple, and it's Neil who gets eviscerated for the 5th time now this game. disengage ultimate from Zapman. And I think if you're at this point, Gore, and you're the Knights, you get a Gold Fury and only lose one in the meantime, maybe that's a worthwhile trade.
It's a net gain for them. Maybe not as much as it could have been overall, especially because the Pyromancer was just taken slightly before that. So you lose Gold Fury, or you get Gold Fury, lose one member in Pyro. You close that gold gap, just not to the amount that I think you needed to in order to strip away what feels like control in favor of eUnited. But, I mean, honestly, right now, Neil, no offense to him meant by this, but he's 0-5. He's not really worth that much, so if he dies in an engagement, you're absolutely fine with it. He hit level 12, he has the Thorns, he has his Blink, he's got everything that you need from an Ares, save for the tankiness right now. And you can see he's going for some of the aura items, he's going to work with that passive. I think late game Neil is still the same potential, it's just how long does it take to get there?
He's still level level-wise with Genetics. Somehow at 0-5, he's been able to remain relevant enough in these farming situations to keep himself right in that conversation. It was a 4K gold lead, though, for eUnited. Some of that in the solo, some of that in the jungle, a little bit now in that support category. It has spiked up, though. Was 4K is the pivotal moment there. Just hovering around that 2K mark here up to this point. Zapman, I feel like we've kind of glimpsed over here towards this long lane, and really it's been a lot and almost entirely on the long lane for eUnited here early and into the mid, and obviously the death columns would show that 0-5 and 0-3 for Neil and Zap. Have eUnited done enough, though, Gore, to, we've talked about Ares, but keep this Heimdall down?
I don't know. Zap's still, well, not. I don't want to say on par with where he was last game. He's behind in terms of level compared to Snoopy, whereas last game, for the most part, he had a full lead. He's able to get his items online a little faster, but he's going the same build, and we saw that all that matters, especially with this kind of build where it's pin-based, is getting this next item online, and then all of a sudden towers don't mean anything to him. He gets the item right there after, potentially going for something like a Titan's Bane, and then all of a sudden, objectives, Furies, Phoenixes, your tanks as eUnited don't mean anything to him. He's doing just fine right now.
3 men rotate over to solo lane for eUnited, make it 4, as Genetics hanging close by as well. Solo ultimate, down onto Scary D, but won't really result in anything. Home Sweet Home from Hurrywind as well, plugs down, just a touch of damage. This actually might be a fight that Pittsburgh Knights are looking to take. Scream! Look at the health melt there! So much of that Cubo and Paul are going to get rid of the set now. Only the second time this game that Scream has fallen off. Zapman with a good rotation, just awaiting the return of Variety here. No ultimate to save the Cerberus' life. It's 5-10 in the kill column, Gore, but the Knights have now pulled themselves a gold lead.
Man, I just had deja vu. Snoopy's over there pulling a Netrioid, as I like to call it. Sanguine like to send their hunter to split push, and hey, you lose the fight around Fire Giant. You might even lose Fire Giant, depending on how this goes, but you get that tier 2 over and left.
Genetics real close there with the To the Skies, unable to take it away. 5 members of the Knights with the Fire Giant on, or he went just close by enough to save his support's life. Now there's actually a bit of a chase after the fact. Hurrywind caught out here. This is going to be a dead Baba Yaga. It's Paul who's able to benefit. And the big turnaround here for the Merlin as well, 3-0-2. Genetics days seem to be numbered. And I say this, that there's no like fact or like tangible, evidence to kind of root this in. It seems like eUnited had this big lead early, all these kills, Paul now capitalizing for the 4th time this game. I don't know if I say they let off the gas, or maybe instead it's just the Knights who have been able to really slow things down. And Gore, now they're ahead.
I think the Knights slid things down. I think that's the appropriate way to look at it. I mean, they've stopped eUnited from getting a lot of fights that should be going in their favor, and they only gave them a few fights that went in their favor. And even in moments like that, I mean, I could already, in my mind, see question mark spam because Genetics ran to the blue buff. He was hoping to dash over the wall, right? Hoping to try and continue this chase up. But the chase is what was the important decision. I mean, Zap left to chase him down. The rest of the team killed off the mid laner. Unfortunately for Zap, doesn't seem like he might get as much out of it. Luckily, that Bifrost is just so potent.
And the ultimate can be used as a disengage tool there as well. He's wasted a touch of Variety's time. That's opened up the left side of this map now for the Knights to move in. Cubo taken low. Tier 2 tower, unable to be damaged here. The Knights moving far forward. In pulled is Variety, and Cubo Fred grabs the kill. Neil is is a touch too low to maybe keep fighting here. Scary D half HP, and now eUnited collapsing back on the retreating members of the Knights. Scary D doesn't maybe have the cooldowns to get himself out alive, and instead he does. That's a tanky Osiris, so he stays alive here, Gore. But now Scream is back in on the re-engagement, though. Paul throwing out some of those abilities might be all she wrote for this fight.
Yeah, Scream might be back, but Zapman is just as back, and maybe if not more so. He's hitting so hard. Snoopy, to be careful with the engagement he has. That Aussie passive, if it comes up at the right time, means Zapman can just fall back for a second and stay in this fight even more so. I mean, this Heimdall, you had asked me a couple of minutes ago if he was still in it, and he's still at 0-3. Zapman does not care.
Well, Scream is going to try to take the Fury away, and he is not able to do so, and actually ends up dying on the back end. Scary D, we've shown a moment ago that he can shrug off a good bit of damage here, and he's going to move right back in onto eUnited on the back side of the fight. Paul, now 6-0-3. This Merlin starting to run away with the game. Cubo Fred realizes Variety in range, and that's going to be the ultimate. But immediately Cubo is going to return with the beads. Hurrywin, though, drops the rain damage. It's a double kill for the Baba Yaga. Gore, might come down to a battle of the mid laners here, and we're going to get a glimpse. Hurrywin and Paul going toe-to-toe, but it's Scary D who ruins Hurrywin's day, and Paul is able to stay alive. Genetics moving right back in on a Scary D, but look at those health bars melt. This is not a winning fight for eUnited. 1 kill away from the Deicide, and that's Genetics underneath the Tier 2 tower. The blink in from Neoma. Genetics with nowhere to run. Gore, it's going to be the potential Deicide here, and they get it with 1 second to spare. And the Knights now in 25 minutes have a map for the take.
I think some of Paul's best moments come from half health and barely enough mana to cast 2 abilities, right? I feel like he is almost always in these fights, and he's just so powerful and such a strong player from the backline that maybe he's getting a lot more abilities off in the very initial fight. That's what gets him to those states. But all of the huge turnarounds are always this life or death moment for Paul, right? He goes into that trance, a warrior's trance when he's about to die in game, and just makes it happen. Whether that means it's finding the perfect turnaround, or it's the jukes, or the use of his abilities, it's just been insane for him. So a lot of kills picked up there, especially with their engagement. Unfortunately, Zapman gets caught out trying to juke an ability that turns left when it gets thrown out by Hurrywin. So maybe some good bounce back and clap back from eUnited. But considering how the kills were reading earlier, that 5-for-2 trade, not only not worth it for him, but now Pyromancer, the next Fire Giant in 30 seconds, it's not looking like they're in a good position to try and control it.
And it was really the largest gold lead eUnited had, despite the massive kill lead for themselves was, what, 1 to 2k? And now the Knights have pulled themselves 8, 9k in the lead here of this game. It's a Fire Giant fight now that might have to keep eUnited in this game. And Gore, it's still very much in their grasp. You look at kind of what happened in the previous fight, could be a battle of the mid laners here with Paul being at a state in the game where he can melt down some damage. Hurrywin certainly in the same spot as well. This Fire Giant fight, only 27 minutes in, could be the one that decides the outcome.
And they still have huge teamfight ultimates, specifically Neil. And that's almost all you need when it comes down to it. Scary D, Cubo Fred can use theirs to try and engage, and they're not even in here. It's going to be a free Fire Giant.
Are you surprised at all by that call from eUnited? Do you think that maybe with how snowbally this game has been for the Knights, they realize it's not even worth it? If we lose this fight, the game is over. Let's try our hand at a defense.
I think it's dangerous because I can see that, the last fight resulting in a full-on Deicide maybe doesn't leave them confident going into that. But, I mean, you have Cerberus ult, you have Scream available, Hurrywin had his ult. Everyone was still there. Hey, worst case scenario, you could at least throw Genetics out there to try and lock something down, but they've not been... that feels like a lack of confidence more than anything, right? In most circumstances, I would maybe argue that there's something big, but it feels like they touched the stove last time. They got burned, and now they're afraid to touch the stove again. And in reference to stoves, that's a good idea. You shouldn't burn your hand again on purpose. But for the fight, I mean, jump in there, at least for a little bit, right? It's going to be worthwhile.
Right. There's got to be somebody who can maybe make a potential steal. Won't be, though. Scream takes immense amounts of damage trying to engage on this fight. To the skies from Genetics into the backline here of the Knights. Variety trying to chase down Zapman, unable to do so. Neil, though, is pulled back in. just a little bit. Now Variety uses his ultimate, but it's only onto Ares, and look at Kivo, Fred, and Scary D. They've joined the fights on the back line, and it's Neilma who's going to get rid of Snoopy here. A double stun from Scary D underneath the Phoenix, and it's an Osiris now on a killing spree. Gormizer, Paul may just put down Genetics, and it's Cubo Fred instead. 3 members down for eUnited in the Knights. It looks like they're going to run away with game number 2.
It's so confusing that you're timid to fight around the Fire Giant, but not timid to jump into a fight that doesn't feel very confident once they get Fire Giant there. So maybe some weird calls at the very end from eUnited, but I don't know if you hear it. Instead of just the normal 5 shears that are going to be coming out of the Knights, I think I hear 10 because the Renegades are just as happy with this result. eUnited going down here means that they still have that chance to make playoffs based on their game tomorrow. It still leaves that avenue open for them. And that makes the biggest difference. The Knights are their heroes today.
Obey versus Renegades just got a lot more interesting. It's tough, I think, to recap a game that was as teeter-tottery as this one. Is this one that you think is... It's a weird way to word it. Is this a win for the Knights or a loss for United in the sense that United really dropped the ball with a small lead in the early game?
I want to say it's a little more of the latter. It feels like they dropped the ball, but not in the way that it would make sense. Those last couple of fights, maybe, yeah, there's something that you glance over. But realistically, I'm actually looking at where all those kills early on went. They just spent so much time focusing down Neil that Paul got off to a 4-0 lead at one point, and those are the ones you need to control. The first game, they focused down Paul. That's the right target. Second game, he was let, to go free. He was unchained in the background.
Yeah, I mean, as nice as it is to farm up some kills, if it's on an Ares that's going to find a way to make a difference kind of anyway, maybe as this game goes on. It's not the cleanest of 2-0s we've seen out of the Knights, but it is a 2-0 nonetheless. That's it for set number 1 of this Saturday of SPL. We'll go back to Finch to wrap things up.
Wow, these SPL sets right now, they're so good that I'm really only using the edge of my seat. And I feel like if that's the case, then I better make sure the edge of that seat's pretty premium. That's why you all out there should be making sure that you're picking up these new Maxonomic chairs. They are $50 off. Use code SMITEMAX to pick yours up and customize it today. I know I'm not Dolson, guys, but I'm doing my best here with this. I think that that's respectable, right? Mifflin, can I get a thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe on that one? Get a verdict on where that lands. Oh, it's a shaky thumbs up.
Oh,
stay up.
Solid.
It's
locked in, baby. Yeah. I'm buying a chair now. You got me, buddy.
All right, well, Miff, talk to me a bit about this game because you heard Dolson break that down at the end for them. That things actually were looking good for eUnited. They were up in the kills like 6-1 at one point, but it felt like they never really made much separation in the Golden Experience.
Yeah, they were up 9-3 at about 10 minutes in, if memory serves, or somewhere around there. And even then, no gold lead, no XP lead, but they were continually jamming it down. And it has to feel good when you're jamming it down duo. You got Zatman 0-3, Neil's 0-5, combined 0-9 at one point, I believe. But they just forgot the real threat, the tiger hiding in the leaves, if you would. That is Paul. He was left uncontested, and what's an uncontested Paul going to do? He's going to win you the game. I think he finishes it off 7-0, top of the damage charts. At no point was he under any real action because it was all going towards Neil. I mean, sure, you're shutting down an Ares, but Neil doesn't care. Paul's just winning.
Right, and it turns out that Neil is still able to hit plenty of good ultimates, even in a world where he's behind to set up for the rest of this team. Scary D continue to have an impressive day as well. It really does go to show how difficult it is to try and keep this Knights roster down. And I don't and you guys got to remember that Zatman has like Fat Gum passive from My Hero. You cannot put him down strong enough for him to not be able to bounce back later on. This is old math, guys. Putting Zatman behind in the early game is a guaranteed dub for him almost every time. Obviously, we say it a bit in jest, but 0-4-11s, I mean, Zatman wins those. He just does.
And he's gotten stronger over the years. Take a peek at it, right? Neil Ma also dying a ton in the early, but never really fell behind. Zatman's passive is starting to expand. 3 years down the line, it could just be his whole team, and killing anyone on his roster might just not be worth it.
Yeah, we're obviously having a bit of fun here, but it does feel like this is part of the Knights' identity to me, Mifflin, is their ability to be resilient, right? Even when they do fall behind a bit, they never seem to fall behind by quite as much as everybody else. They're finding their opportunities to farm. They're staying even. They're only giving up the bare minimum and making sure that your lead doesn't expand the way that it might against some of these other rosters. And if you can't find a way to convert in those moments, I don't think you're going to be able to beat the Knights. Let's take a look at how this impacts the standings, though, Miff, because this is huge now. Renegades with a chance to make it into playoffs after all, because eUnited stumbled here up against the Knights.
But they've got to get through Obey, who's been trending up barring last week, and both of these rosters are going to have some substitutions in this next set. Whether or not one benefits more than the other, we'll have to see, but it's got to be especially shaking knowing that your playoff position is completely dependent on a guy that you haven't really practiced with.
Right, that does make things, I think, scary now for Renegades. Like this set has all this extra weight on it now for them that we'll be seeing happening the very first game tomorrow morning. So you want to make sure that you're checking back into that one. That's where we're going to find that conclusion of who is that 6th seed. But there are some other areas to look at too. Who could potentially be the top seed on that? That's something that we'll have a chance to find out in our very next set. But again, we still did have a pretty impressive Knights victory here. So in celebration of that, let's head it down to Dolson for that post-game interview.
Nice, guys. I'm here with Neil Ma after a 2-0 for the Knights over eUnited. Now, Neil, I don't want to, reopen things up for game number 2. A rough start for you and Zap in that long lane, but it didn't really dissuade you guys from finding some openings, finding some fights. What are the calls like in those moments where the start is just brutal, Scream is just kind of sitting in that long lane? What's team communication like in those moments?
I don't know. We've been there a lot over the years. Steve and I have learned to feed together, and our team has learned to tolerate it. And we've been in those situations so much we're behind. It doesn't matter too much. We just know if we just keep playing our game, and even though we've made mistakes in the past, we just have to keep looking forward and looking to just make some good plays and just wait for them maybe to make a mistake. And it's all about just keeping in it mentally, just making sure that even though you're behind, you still have a chance to win.
Well, as tough as a start as it was, you guys equally and even more so kind of snowballed things out of control heavier in game number 2 there. Now, mid lane, ever so important here in this matchup. I assume, you guys are absolutely a team that does your homework. How prepped were you guys for Hurrywin, maybe specifically today with the Baba Yaga and the Giannis, a run back from his 2 games last week?
Yeah, I mean, Baba's not a character that's been out super long, so I don't think a lot of teams have had a lot of chance to play against it or practice it, but we know what the character does, and we know it's nothing that's super overpowered. It's just another mid-mage. It does a lot of the same stuff. It has a lot of damage, has a bit of AoE and a little bit of randomness to it. So we were definitely prepared for it, but it's not like we really game plan be like, we need to be ready for this Bob or whatnot. It's kind of just like United's a team that's going to pick what they want to pick. They have their own team comps they play. They draft a lot differently than other teams, so you kind of just have to be ready for anything.
And you guys were ready for it here. Again, the 2-0 for you guys. Not kind of looking at the phase and moving into the playoffs on a high level. How important do you think it is for you guys? Obviously, have already secured your spot, a chance to jump over Radiance as of right now in the standings on top of them seeding-wise. How important do you think to end the phase on a high note and move into the playoffs with a couple wins?
Yeah, it's nice for morale, obviously, but that being said, everything that happened in the regular season is kind of thrown out the window when you show up to a tournament, right? It's just about what team has a good idea of the meta, what team has a better read in their team, what team shows up to play. So it's definitely really good ending the season on a win, but at the end of the day, we know that doesn't really matter. It's about preparation for the tournament, so getting a good week of practice in, and it's about showing up and playing our best Smite.
I'm sure you and all the Knights fans there hope that's the case next weekend. Neil, big congrats on the 2-0 for you guys. Best of luck in the tournament, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.